Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Event Crushed podcast. This is your host, Becky, and I'm so glad that you are joining me today. I have another wonderful guest, and this week I'm chatting with Emily Foster Keller of Emily Foster Creative, and she is a brand and website designer and strategist based right here in Oregon. She is just a couple hours north of me in Portland, and she's going to be at Wedding MBA coming up next month as well. So I'm super excited to get to meet her in person. But we just had a great conversation about the 5 pillars of a successful website. And I will warn you now, we did go down some other rabbit holes. I found out just some different things we have in common, and we touched on some other details relating to websites and wedding pros and all that good stuff. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this interview, and you can find Emily in the show notes below. Her websites, as well as the amazing freebies that she shared with us, are all linked there. So definitely connect with her. So we just hope you enjoy this episode. And if you are not already subscribed to the podcast, please hit that subscribe button so that you'll get notified every week when a new episode launches. We have been able to be super consistent. I've posted a new episode every single week, with the exception of 1 week since May when we launched, and I have every intention of continuing on that way. So yeah, definitely subscribe if you haven't already. If you haven't left a review yet, but you've been thinking about it, now might be a great time to jump over there and leave a quick review. It means the world. Okay, well, with that, let's jump into the interview with Emily. Emily, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have a fellow Oregonian with me here today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
Of course. I would love it if you would just introduce yourself for any of my listeners who are not familiar with you.
Yeah, I'm Emily Foster Keller. I own Emily Foster Creative, and I'm a branding and website designer. We design brands and websites for wedding pros that are focused on creating a bespoke and personalized experience for your clients, representing you in a way that is authentic to who you are as a person, and also digs into your brand strategy and helps you to attract and convert your favorite clients so that you actually enjoy the business that you work in. And I got started, we're going to be 4 years in business in a few months, which is kind of crazy to say. But I worked in marketing and then also kind of the events industry before getting laid off during the pandemic, and then starting my business, kind of starting with freelancing and deciding to niche down into working with wedding pros after having a love for the industry for so long.
Yeah, that's amazing. It seems like a lot of people end up wanting to work with wedding pros, whether, they're like virtual assistants or branding. It seems like a lot of people kind of gravitate towards the wedding industry.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard anyone say this, but when I was first trying to decide like what to niche down into, like, I think like everyone, I was like, I want to work with everyone, like any kind of business. And then it was like, I wanted to work with like luxury products and services, and kind of like you do that soul searching of figuring out who you want to work with. And I talked with a couple people who had started working with like photographers in the wedding industry originally. And then it was kind of like, they eventually like moved on, or they like expanded their niche, probably like a year or two in. And I thought that was interesting because that hasn't happened for me. Like I just, with the connections I've made, like people like you and a lot of other people in the industry, I feel like I just will always be in the wedding industry. Maybe we shouldn't like never say never, but I've enjoyed it so much. And maybe that's just because I already had that passion for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think people who are in the wedding industry, like a lot of them are in it for the long haul. And
Yeah.
I've always said, like, I might not plan weddings forever, but I feel like I'll be in the wedding industry in some capacity. I can't imagine like separating from it completely. That just feels really sad.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I had a coach tell me once, like, oh, maybe like since you're planning your wedding now, which was a few years ago now, you'll like work with wedding pros and maybe like when you become a mom, you'll work with like mommy brands. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's just always going to be weddings because there's something really special about them.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's awesome that you know that. And I think it's just so great to find a niche that you like truly love and are passionate about. And, you're getting to work with people that you want to work with. And yeah, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
definitely.
I saw on your website, this is kind of random, but I saw that you wanted to be a journalist growing up. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. So I was the pre-bandwagon train of Gilmore Girls, and Rory Gilmore was like my idol growing up. I think I started watching the show when I was like 8 or 9. My dad was in the military, and so like when he was deployed, my mom and I would like just binge the show together. And I wanted to go to Harvard and be a journalist, and I read a lot of books at the time. I still do. I didn't end up affording or even applying to Ivy League schools. And then I did go into a journalism program. I lived in Eugene and went to the University of Oregon and did their journalism program. And it's a really interesting structure. So it
Mhm.
like teaches you to master storytelling and interviewing and a lot of like journalistic kind of qualities. And then from there, I niched down into advertising and design and could probably expand upon that a lot more. But so I did end up like majoring in journalism, and I worked for a couple like magazines, technically as a designer, and a newspaper in college. So I was kind of journalist adjacent in the long
Mhm.
run.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how cool. I mentioned it because I also wanted to be a journalist growing up. Not when I was like super young, but in high school I was co-editor in chief of the high school paper. And I just back in the day I like loved writing and I just thought it would be so fun to like interview people. It's actually kind of funny because now I'm interviewing people. I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. But I actually moved, so I'm from the Seattle area. Originally my plan was to come to Eugene, where I am now, and to attend the journalism school at U of O. So that was like my whole plan. And it just, it changed. I got accepted to the U of O, but then my parents were like, oh, out of state tuition's really expensive. So why don't you go to community college for a couple of years? So I did that. And then when it came time to transfer my credits, well, by that point, I was no longer interested in being a journalist. And my credits just transferred better to a different college. So, anyways, plans changed a bit, but yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that you went to U of O here in Eugene. So,
Yeah, yeah. I know it's funny because I guess if anyone's listening to this, if you're like across the country or somewhere else in the world, like it's known for being like Nike school, and like that's where Nike was born. And I went to it originally, even though I wanted to be a journalist, I was in yearbook in high school and also in this like business club, which is also kind of full turn, like where I was learning about like business and entrepreneurship. And then I wanted to major in sports business because that was like the University of Oregon's like reputation. So at one point I was double majoring in business and journalism with a focus in advertising, and ended up having to kind of drop one because they were very like similar and redundant to each other. But yeah, it's a great school, like especially that journalism school. Like there's a lot that I continue to even learn as an alumni, not to like promote them, but lots of opportunities for people there. And I wish that journalism was still like the same industry that it kind of still was during like Gilmore
mm,
Girls days.
yeah. Oh my gosh, Gilmore Girls. Oh, it's so good. I didn't watch it when I was a kid though. I didn't watch it till maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And I just fell in love. I was like, why did I never watch this? Like I totally could have pictured my mom and I watching it together. And I don't know, but it's so good. And it's that time of year. I'm like, oh, I need to watch Gilmore Girls
Yeah, I
again.
know. It's like Friends. They're both my comfort shows. And I
Mm-hmm.
will say not a lot of people talk about this because a lot of people are more in your boat of like where they started it as an adult. But it's funny when you watch it as a kid and then kind of grow up with it, because I thought Dean was like the best person ever. And I was like, oh, he's like dream boy. And then you grow up and you're like, oh, he's actually not the best boy in the show.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. And Jess was like awful, like because you're taught like
Right.
not to like people like Jess as a little girl.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I'm sure it's like a whole different perspective when you watch it as an adult versus
Yeah.
as a kid. Oh. Okay, well, we are discussing the 5 pillars of a successful website today, and I am just really excited for you to walk us through it. So, first of all, if you don't mind just describing, like, what does a successful website mean to you?
Yeah. So to me, for wedding pros, it's kind of this specific niche. Like every website needs to be beautiful and functional, but I think the caliber for wedding pros is just so much higher because you need it to look really, really beautiful. Like there's a lot of expectations, especially if you're in a luxury market or trying to move to that. Like your clients are very aesthetics focused. But then it also needs to be very functional in terms of SEO and user experience because I think in every industry, like whether it's like you're buying things on Amazon or something like that, people are like price shopping and comparing and having multiple tabs open. But especially your couples when they're seeking like a wedding planner or what rentals company or photo booth rental, like they have multiple tabs open. And a lot of them are like word of mouth referrals or people that they know they can already trust and they're basically ready to hand over their money to you. So like it's a very like trust-based industry. So the website is usually that last bridge that they need to ensure that they want to work with you. So it needs to have a good user experience and really connect with them in a personal way, more so than like an e-commerce site might need to, or like a dentist website or something like that. So I think when I say like a successful website, it needs to be like high end and bespoke in the sense that it fits with your style. It doesn't necessarily have to be pastel and calligraphy and all of those like cliches that we see of wedding industry aesthetics. But it needs to be a high end design. It needs to be user friendly and easy to navigate. And then it also needs to be searchable on Google so that people can find you because that's another thing is not every industry needs to rely on SEO. And I think it's still this misconception with some wedding pros that you don't need to get found on Google, but it's virtually free and it's possible for all of us to do it. So it's like, why not get found on Google, especially when a lot of us are so location based?
hmm That was something that I really prioritized in the early days of my business was my SEO and making sure that I was going to be on that first page when people are searching Eugene Wedding Planner. And, over the years, so much of my business has come from Google. It's crazy to think about like if I hadn't prioritized that or just what my business would look like or like would I even still be around right now if I hadn't prioritized that because truly like so much of my business is from Google. And I think for any service-based wedding provider, like, we are location based. Even if you travel, like you still need to be able to, people need to be able to find you locally and they can't do that if you're not, searchable. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even like to kind of prove a point, like I was on a call earlier today with a client and they're based in one city and we were talking about their competitors and people who like might get booked instead of them getting booked by like a client inquiry. And they mentioned someone who's like in a city that's 3 hours away who is somehow coming up for SEO search results in their city. So like we had both heard of them and like know that they don't actually like live in the city that my client's in, but because of the power of SEO and their ability to travel, like they are sometimes getting clients instead of my client getting those inquiries.
mhm, that's really interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So,
powerful
yeah. Yeah. And the evergreen content, like you mentioned, like it works for years.
for sure. Okay, so let's dive into these 5 pillars. So, what can you tell us what the first pillar is? And yeah, just tell us all about it.
Yeah. So the first pillar is brand strategy, which is the heart of everything. And I really believe that you can't do anything successfully in the next like 5 pillars without it. So it's getting to know your ideal client, your brand archetypes. Some people call them like brand seasons, your brand personality, your market positioning, pricing strategy. All of that goes into your brand strategy. And it's basically like the heart of your business and the way that you'll communicate and show up in the industry and connect with your ideal clients. So that has to be really established, and we do some level of it for all of our clients for that reason. Even in our like smaller packages or even our done with you, we still help by working through a worksheet or doing like a 1 hour workshop, things like that. And then the next one is design. So kind of hand in hand, branding and website design. They could probably be two different pillars, but I guess I just decided to narrow it down to five a while back. But thinking about the aesthetics of your brand and your website, and the rest of your marketing too. So your colors, typography, the scale and white space that you're using, the textures and lines and other graphics that you're using in your marketing assets. And so that all needs to be consistent and established from your brand strategy. And then copywriting is the next one. So this is basically the messaging that you're going to have on your website and in the rest of your business that speaks to your clients. So you'll use what's called brand keywords, which aren't SEO keywords, but words that sound like your brand in a way that you're intentionally speaking to your clients. So developing that brand voice and that consistent messaging across every platform, and especially on your website, it should be a mix of like brand oriented and sales oriented language. And then content, I differentiate that from copywriting because along with copywriting, we also have the ability to do like blogging and long form content on your website. So it could be like blogs, FAQs. It can also be like other forms of content like lead magnets, email opt ins, freebies, kind of different language for that. And then also the images on your website, which, as we know, especially for like a lot of planners and photographers and venues, like images play a huge part in the way that your website is perceived. We can do so many good things with the design and the copy, but if you can't provide images that are really high quality, then it's still going to fall flat. So that is all kind of like under the umbrella of content of choosing images and wording that is going to both drive traffic to your website and also connect with your clients when they get there. And then the last one is SEO, which is, we talked a little bit about it, search engine optimization. And that's getting found on Google or other search platforms, like it could be Bing or other things like that. And that is the technical side of optimizing your website. So making sure you have things like page titles and meta descriptions, alt text on your images, that you have Google Analytics and Google Search Console connected. And all of that, the decisions that you're making with like the SEO keywords that you're using needs to be fueled by your brand strategy. And then it kind of ties back to everything. So you can use your SEO strategy and put it into your content, and write blogs based on keywords. And then you can also write copywriting for your website that naturally infuses those words. So it's like the five separate pillars, and they all kind of bridge together in a spider web to make your successful website.
I love that. So I was typing them out, but somehow I only have four. So brand strategy, copywriting, content. Oh, is design its own thing? Or
Yeah, design is its own pillar. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So brand strategy, design, copywriting, content, SEO.
Brand strategy, design, content, copywriting, SEO. Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I had that right.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I love just the way you were describing like a spider web, how they're all kind of connected. They all, one wouldn't function very well without the other. Like they're all necessary components. And I think you said in the beginning, well, I was going to ask you if you had to pick one that you think is like the most important, but I think you said brand strategy is kind of the foundation of it all.
Yeah, I really think so because like at the end of the day, like we know that you need a website to be a successful wedding pro in the long run. But I mean, you can grow a thriving business without a website too, which is kind of like contrary to this whole episode. But if you have a great brand strategy, you could figure out other ways to market yourself. But yeah, I don't think that you can have any of those without some level of brand strategy and have it be effective. And I think that's kind of what differentiates me and like some other similar agencies and studios that do this work is because we're thinking about all of those things versus sometimes you'll see like an SEO agency that like they'll get you on Google, but like what strategy are they really using? And are they actually helping you better the design of your website? And then there's tons of website designers out there who are designing beautiful websites, but they're just not effective. Like the copy doesn't really sit well with clients, so they're not converting or they don't have SEO set up. So you're just not even getting found.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories of people who paid a ton of money to have their whole website redone, but there was nothing for SEO. And now this, like I'm thinking of a specific vendor friend in mind, a videographer, and she has had a ton of trouble just even getting found on Google anymore. And it makes me really sad. I'm like, oh, because obviously SEO is such a huge component of this. And if it doesn't matter how beautiful your website is if nobody can find it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that you're not taught. Like, I didn't learn SEO in college. And even when I started my business, I was in a coaching program for designers. And like, a lot of people are of the mindset of like, I design websites, I don't do SEO. But I think that's really starting to shift. And we've had a focus on it for several years now for clients because it is such a big part of especially this industry.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then just really quick, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but it is crazy to me that people have a successful business without a website, which like you said is very, very contrary to this conversation, but it does happen. And I always say this on the podcast. I'm like, there's always anomalies. Like I can just think of a local venue that they get booked out every year. They have no website. They have very minimal social media presence, but it's just all word of mouth, which, goes to show the power of word of mouth. But that is so extremely rare that a vendor would have that there would be such a high demand for it based on solely word of mouth. So that is extremely rare. And do not take this as me saying that you should not have a website because you definitely need a website. And yeah, to anyone who's listening and is in early stages of business and has debated like, oh, I have my Instagram account and that can just be my portfolio for now. And I can just use that. Sorry, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
So another kind of direction that I wanted to take us on briefly is you were on the Power in Purpose podcast recently, which is shout out to Candace Coppola, my business coach. It was such a good episode. I loved it so much. And I loved it because you talked about using color and kind of being bolder in like design for wedding pros specifically, because I think for a long time now, there's been this idea that wedding pros need to be more like, especially if you're wanting to be more like higher end luxury, like more neutral and black and white and just all of that. And I really appreciated how you kind of dispelled that myth and said, no, like you can still have a nice high end brand and like have color. So do you mind just touching on that a little bit? And just, I'll link that episode in the show notes for sure, because it's so good and everybody should listen to it if they have not already. But if you don't mind, just going a little deeper on that.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love Candace so much, and I was so grateful that she had the time for me to be on the podcast. It was a fun time recording with her. But yeah, I think I mentioned this in that episode, and if I didn't, I was definitely like thinking about it at the time because I was so scared to niche down in the wedding industry because I've had experience like designing a lot of colorful brands in my past. Like I used to work with like more athletic and outdoorsy brands when I worked in agencies. But I also liked this luxury aesthetic. And I've never liked feeling niched by my style. I've had coaches tell me multiple times, like, you need to niche down in your style, like maybe be like really neutral and minimalistic or boho, or bright and colorful. And I just didn't really feel comfortable doing that. I don't know if I ever really will. So I think I was like at first selfishly trying to find an out. um, like years ago when I was niching down in the wedding industry, and I was scared because I saw other designers focusing a lot on one style for their clients. And even now, like that's usually like you might be listening to this and think of a brand and website designer and they have a set style and you either love or don't love their work for that reason. So I realized there was like this kind of gap in the industry because after deciding to niche down and like having some people tell me like no, you can definitely do like different brands for clients and like seeing examples because it's not too hard to find examples of like bold and colorful wedding pros out there. I realized there was like a gap because people inquiring with me were kind of scared to break out of like their comfort zone. Like they would come to me and they would say like, oh, I want like a light pink like modern brand. And when we would talk about like why, it's because maybe a competitor of theirs had that look or they saw like a website template that they liked that had that kind of aesthetic. But it wasn't actually thought through as to like making sense for their clients or their brand strategy. So yeah, that episode covers a lot about like how like our clients don't look the same anymore. Like a wedding couple isn't planning the same kind of wedding that maybe they were in like the 90s or early 2000s. It's not all just like the wedding planner and like those other kinds of movies. So there's different expectations from couples, which I think has kind of shaped the industry that it is now. And there's also a need simultaneously for you to stand out. And I think one of the easiest ways to stand out is by being more bold and vibrant and colorful. Not just for the sake of that, but if it makes sense for you and your brand personality and strategy. So yeah, it was like a conversation talking about how, like we talked about some examples of luxury brands that use color, and then how you can also be really tasteful in the way that you're using color, because it comes down to the design and the way that you maybe use accent colors or use scale, and other things throughout your brand to develop like a really intentional experience that honors color but still feels in line with the market that you're trying to reach.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good episode. Everybody needs to go listen to
Thank
it right
you.
after this one. um, with my current brand that I'm in the process of a rebrand. And it's definitely, I mean, my current brand has like several colors in it. They're more like, I don't know, they're kind of a mix of like darker and lighter, but they're not super bright, I would say. And my new brand is definitely more like bright, which I'm super excited about. I personally like, I love doing weddings that are colorful and vibrant and bright pops of color. And I've enjoyed those a lot for the last like few years. And so I'm like, I love doing these kind of weddings. Like, I don't get excited personally. I don't get excited about neutral weddings. Like when they just want all white flowers. I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm like, we will do it. But those aren't the weddings that get me really excited. It's like the colorful, fun, patterns and textures. That's the stuff that really excites me. And so, anyways, it just made sense to kind of incorporate some of that into my brand. So it was great to hear. It made me feel like I wasn't making a poor choice.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I can't wait to see the new brand. And I
Me
feel like
too.
it makes so much sense to you for you too. Like if people can't like watch the video, like you have like bright pink lipstick on and heart-shaped earrings. Like it just makes sense for your entire vibe.
Yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So, when you are working with clients through either, you're doing their branding or their website, like, do you have a favorite part of that process, or what do you really look forward to when you're working with a client?
Yeah, I love the brand strategy calls. I had a couple today, and it's so funny because I think I'm trying to figure out if I'm an extrovert or an introvert. So I don't love meetings, but I will forever want to keep doing calls with clients in that way. I don't think I could ever outsource that part because it's so much fun digging into who they are. It ends up being like a weird mix of like personal conversations and brand history and talking about ideal clients and competitors and all of this just basically brainstorming and dumping of information about their business. So I think that part's really fun. I mean, in like a perfect world, I would love to like book clients that don't live near me and do like brand strategy workshops, like fly out and work with them and their team. I think that could be a really cool experience. So definitely the brand strategy. And then I also just love like the creation part, the drawing and designing. That's kind of where those don't go hand in hand because I have a really good day in business when I don't have any meetings and I just get to design a website all day or draw icons for a client or design a logo. Like, I think that's that kind of creative flow that a lot of us get in with our work. So, both of those, kind of the people relations strategy and then also the creation part.
Mm, yeah. I'm still hung up on the fact that you don't know if you're an introvert or an extrovert.
I call myself an ambivert. I think it's
Okay.
just yeah. Like because I'm more social, I think, than my husband. Like I'm always the one that's like, oh, we should go out and do this thing. We should like book more social gatherings and things
Mhm.
like that. But I also like go through like phases where I'm like, I just can't text anyone back right now, or like I've been really trying, like, my new business problem is trying to figure out how to schedule my meetings so I'm not so burnt out with meetings. Like, and I
Mhm.
can't decide if it should be one entire full day every week or like 2 days that are like half days or something like that. So I'm kind of in between.
Yeah. No, I know that I'm an extrovert because of the way that I get my energy is like from being around other people. Like that's where my energy comes from. Whereas my husband, when he's in like big groups of people, he's just like drained and he's like, I need a break. So I know I'm an extrovert, but I definitely have some introvert tendencies too. Like if I same with me. Like if I have a bunch of meetings scheduled in a day, by the end of the day, I'm just like, oh, like it's a lot when it's like back to back to back. Like I've been trying also to not have my days scheduled that way. But at the moment, I think I went from 3 to 2 days for meetings. And so those days, it's like those are the only days available for people. So then they do end up being very long days. But then the other days are super nice because if I don't have any meetings, I'm like, oh, I can just get all this stuff done and, work on the more like creative and business back end stuff. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually.
Right. Oh, so I realized like we jumped over the 5 pillars very quickly. I kind of took us on a whole journey, but is there anything else that you wanted to share regarding the 5 pillars? Yeah, just anything else that we didn't touch on yet.
Yeah, I think that it's good to have like kind of like a warning for wedding pros because I think like you were saying like you had like a friend who spent a lot of money on a website and then it just like hasn't been found on Google and getting traffic. So I think kind of a warning to plan when you're redesigning your website, like you should plan to either invest the time or the money into these 5 pillars. So like for my clients, it looks different all along the spectrum. I'm like a branding and website design studio, so people primarily come to me for those services. So they're working on the design pillar, but we have help and support with all of the rest of the pillars in every package. So brand strategy calls are a thing for every package. We do basic on-page SEO for all of our website design projects. And then we offer a copywriting guide. And we also make recommendations on like blogging and image selection. And we make sure that we're optimizing the images and all of that on their website. So even at the lowest scale, we do that. And then we have like a larger package that is like all of that is done for you. And I just feel like that is what every website designer should offer in some capacity. And it's just not quite true in the industry yet. And I get it because in order to offer support and spend more time on these things and have the expertise to like make sure that it's quality for your clients, you do need to charge more and like you need to have more experience. And then some clients don't think that they need that. So it's also like your marketing strategy changes and all of that. So as a wedding pro, I think what you can do is make sure that when you are inquiring with a designer, understand if they're covering all of those bases for you or those pillars. But then also, if they're not, just have a backup plan of what you're going to do. So it could look like hiring a designer who's going to do your branding and your website. And just make sure that you do some legwork up front, like maybe it's with your business coach or some industry friends, and you're thinking through your brand strategy prior and then bringing that up to your designer because not every designer has a process where they're asking you questions and like pulling out your brand strategy. And then if they don't offer copy, you can certainly do workshops to figure out how to write your own copy or hire a professional copywriter. Make sure that you ask your designer if they do that or if they have partners that they can work with. And then SEO, you should ideally be working with an SEO expert before a website design, technically. Like you should at least have someone available so that when the website is almost designed, you can start implementing an SEO strategy. And there's a lot of great SEO agencies that work with wedding pros. I have a couple favorites. And you can always work with them if you are doing like a lower package with us, or if you are planning to hire someone who has no idea what they're doing with SEO. So, ideally, you should focus on all of those eventually. So, either taking the time to do the research and implement it yourself, or go hire the professionals separately or all in one studio if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you provide copywriting services as part of what you do?
Yeah, yeah. So in my highest package, we do like copywriting done for you. So it includes the brand strategy component that goes into that, like brand messaging and brand voice establishment, and then doing keyword research before and then writing that into your copywriting so that it sounds really natural for your clients and does the work in talking with them, but then it also is optimized for your SEO.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, this was the first time I ever hired somebody to do my copywriting. And I only ended up doing it for the homepage to start. Like I thought we would do that and then I could always add on more. But it's been really fun to see. I mean, my website isn't live yet, but to see the copy in the new site and just like what a difference it makes. Because before it was just me, who's obviously not a copywriter, trying to make my business sound appealing. And it's a world of difference between that and hiring a professional copywriter who can just really work their magic with words. And yeah, that to me was just like a no brainer. This time I was like, I can't trust myself with this. Like, I need this in the hands of a professional. So I'm very excited to get that out into the world.
Yeah, oh, I'm excited to see it. And yeah, it's hard to get out of your head for these things too. Like, it's kind of like the cobbler with the shoes concept. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. And can you just share a little bit more about the services that you offer, just in case anyone's listening and, they're in the market for a new brand or a new website? Could you just briefly touch on a bit more about what you guys provide?
Yeah, yeah. So every service that I have like approaches all of those five pillars in some way. And there's the all-inclusive experience, which is our highest end package. I always compare it to like full service wedding planning or like an all-inclusive venue package. And it's custom priced to you. But we do have like a price range. Like right now it's 10 to 13K, like at the end of 2024. But I think we'll probably raise the prices next year. And that includes copywriting, branding, website design, and SEO keyword research. But it's also customized to whether you want support with a brand launch strategy and some marketing assets afterward, like maybe blogging support, social media support, and any other kind of elements that go into that, because it's so different for every wedding pro. Like some have welcome guides and email flows and things that they need support with. So that's all tailored to you. And then from there, we have kind of like my partial planning package, which is custom branding and website design, which includes strategy and basic on page SEO. And then it also includes support with some keyword research for future blog writing to give you ideas for that. And that is where I kind of compare it to building a house. Like we build a house from the ground up with that, or the highest end package, like customizing the website entirely for you. And then all of our brands are custom with custom illustrations or like manipulated typography and other bespoke touches to make it uniquely yours. And then we have the website in a week or brand in a week services, where you can get either a custom brand, or if you don't necessarily have the budget for a brand right now, or you also are newer in business, then I don't think like if you're less than 2 to 3 years in business that you should necessarily be investing thousands of dollars into a brand design unless you're really sure of your brand strategy and the direction that you want to go into. So with that package, it's 2,700 for a website in a week, or brand in a week, or you can partner them together. I probably shouldn't say prices because I guess this isn't evergreen, or this is evergreen. But you can also package them together. And a lot of our like newer business owner clients do that package because it's a really good approach to getting a strategic, SEO friendly website, but it's a template customization. So it's kind of like ordering a house and then customizing some details for it, and still making it really unique to you and your strategy. So it accomplishes almost what a custom website does, but it's a smaller scope, so it wouldn't work as well for someone who's like really far into their business and might need like an educational page or a custom workflow or something like that. So there's that. And then we also sell show it website templates for people who want to DIY themselves and have a smaller budget, or are newer in business or need something up really quick. And those are all designed with like user experience and strategy in mind. And I think one thing that might be different about them too is that the filler in the template like tells you what to write too. So even at like a small level, for like right now less than $500, you're still getting like that level of copywriting support where like I'm telling you like, hey, put your tagline here and like here's your introductory paragraph. This should share something about what you do. And in this line, you should put a keyword optimized thing like San Diego wedding photographer, or something like that. And then we also have a course that comes with the templates and tells you like what SEO details to implement and all of those things. So I'm really passionate about having like those 5 pillars in it at every point, even though like we all know you have to have different scopes for different package prices. So that's our services.
Yay. It's sounds incredible and very thorough. And I love just what you were saying there about the templates having the copy with the copywriting, like telling you what to put where. Cause I've had that experience before where it's like it just has the, the fake words all in
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, cool, like what do I put here? So the fact that you kind of are setting them up for success in that way is really, really cool. And I'm sure much appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, even as a website designer, I was customizing a template for a client once, and like there was like some script font and I'm like, what do I put here? Like I don't know what the template intended it to be, and you end up kind of deleting things from the template because you don't know what to do with it, which is kind of a waste of the space that you paid for.
hmm
Yeah.
For sure. And then I had a question about the branding or website in a week situation that you do, which is so cool. Does it literally take a week?
Technically, like the design is over a week, and that's the time when clients need to be the most available. It's usually about a 2 to 3 week timeline from like when we start. So we do a brand strategy in the week before, which is meeting over a call, and putting together a mood board and getting that approved. So we start the week with like the style already established. And then on the week of, we start either the logo designs or the homepage of the website on that Monday, get it reviewed, and then that defines the direction for the rest of the brand. So we will, if it's a brand in a week, design the other assets that we're doing. And then if it's a website in a week, design the other pages. And then the goal is to launch the website, like publish it on Friday, depending on domain turnaround time, or for a brand, export the logos and deliver those and the brand guidelines.
Mm, okay. And then just in comparison, because I'm just curious, for your full service package, what is the timeline usually like for that, would you say?
Yeah, that's usually anywhere from like 2 to 4 months, depending on how big the website is and like what kind of branding is needed. Because clients that book that are sometimes keeping the same brand name. And so it's a little bit simpler where we're just redesigning the branding and the website and everything. But then other times they are either starting from scratch or they are changing their brand name. So we also help with brand name research to
Hmm.
help choose a new name. And then that kind of establishes like a whole new direction. Like if we're niching down, there's a little bit more time needed for brand strategy and SEO keyword research, and everything that goes into that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh, I love learning about this stuff. I think it's just, yeah, those are all amazing services that you offer. And I know that you have a website checklist freebie situation. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called the Elevated Website Checklist. And what I like about it is it talks about some of the big picture to dos that you need for your website. So, thinking about these pillars, and it breaks it down in ways that you can start working on it yourself before you hire a designer. And then the second page is all like really quick, actionable things. Like, I think one of them is making the phone number on your contact page clickable from mobile, which is not something that every wedding pro has. I know from like my personal wedding planning experience, and that can really help with your conversions. So that's one of the things there. And you can download that freebie. I think it's emilyfostercreative.com/elevated website checklist with dashes in between, but I know Becky will have it in the show notes. There's that. And then also a brand colors freebie to help you select a color palette that's both strategic and going to be user friendly when you're designing.
Amazing. Well, yes, I'll definitely include that in the show notes and everybody should go grab those. I'm thinking about that mobile phone number and I'm like, is mine clickable? I don't even know. I need to go check now. Shoot.
I'm sorry to just give you what to do at the end of the day.
That's okay. No, I hope that it is. I want to be like, yes, it totally is, but I'm not
I'm
sure.
sure it is. If it's not, none of us will know. It'll be
Yeah,
updated by the time this
right.
is out.
Exactly. Oh, so Emily, this has been great. I just really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge with us. Where can my listeners find you and connect with you online?
Yeah, emilyfostercreative.com for my website. And then I'm also Emily Foster Creative on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Or you can reach out at hello@emilyfostercreative.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.